Welcome in, proxies. The amazing world of New Eridu has been open to the public for a little over a month now, and with patch 1.1 approaching, I wanted to go ahead and do a full recap on the story of 1.0, including important moments, keywords, and things to look out for that I think could be important in future patches. Now, agent missions will not be included in this is just going to be the main story, and agent missions will be a separate video. If you have not played the game before or would like a recap on the world building and terms used in this video, then I'm actually going to go ahead and lead you over to my beginner story video as not re-explain everything and bloat this video more than it will already be. Any corrections or additions will be added in the comments, but with all that said, let's get into it. Of course, the game starts off by introducing the main siblings Wise and Belle, as they chill in the video store's office watching a news report of a holo appearing on 14th Street. The video store is actually a front for their proxy business, which they are known as the legendary proxy Phaethon. Wise says there is a manhunt in the area mentioned on the news, and it cuts to the main faction and customers of Phaethon, the Cunning Hares. The entire main story of ZZZ kicks off because the Cunning Hares were deep in the red with financials, like usual, so Nicole took a risky commission to steal a strongbox from the Red Fang gang, which caused them to get chased all the way to the top of a building in Janice quarters. Unfortunately, they get closed off and pinned by Miguel Silver, who was the leader of the Red Fang gang. Being out of options, they used a flashbang to alert the Public Security Air Force in the area, and with the help of a deranged news reporter, caused an explosion which knocked Billy, Anby, Miguel Silver, and the ever so important strongbox into the Cretan Hollow below. This is very dangerous for everyone involved, since they fell in with no proxy or carrot support. Thankfully, Anby quickly runs into Billy as they continue to look for a way out. They ended up running into the strongbox, which is next to the currently mutating Miguel Silver. He fully mutates into a Dullahan ethereal, and Billy quickly acts to provide cover for both him and Anby to retreat to safety as they can't take him down themselves. We then get to see the siblings once again watching the news report as Nicole bursts into the door, frantically informing them of what happened and trying to hire them to help her get Anby and Billy out of the hollow. During this conversation, Nicole does mention that the general election is around the corner, which, albeit just a passing comment, this general election will be a plot point in the future, so I recommend keeping it in the back of your mind for now. The siblings agree to help Nicole, and she places Eos at a designated location as they connect to him through the HDD and enter the hollow. They quickly locate Anby and Billy and extract them to safety, leaving behind the strongbox in the hollow for now. Once everyone is back together, Nicole gives the siblings a USB drive she took off Miguel Silver to try and decrypt the information in case it has something to do with the strongbox. While the siblings decrypt the drive, the Cunning Hares come up with a plan to re-enter the hollow and retrieve the strongbox. However, this plan quickly gets derailed shortly after entering the hollow once again, as the HDD system gets hacked and taken over for a short period. This causes the siblings to get disconnected from Eos and leaves the Cunning Hares stranded with no proxy or carrot data. They soon come across a group of hollow investigators, and Billy recommends that they give up the identity of Phaethon to, in turn, receive help out of the hollow, but Nicole declines and tells them to keep moving. On Phaethon's side of the hack, the siblings learned that inside the strongbox is an AI system that can calculate holopaths similarly to the scale of Rosetta data, which is a master copy of the holodata only accessible to the city's rulers. The siblings quickly realize that this hacker is not all he's cracked up to be and outsmart him by sacrificing their account to him, and then calling PubSec on Phaethon, who was now the hacker. The hacker leaves to deal with the sirens coming ever closer to his location, and the siblings promptly reconnect to Eos and continue on with the Cunning Hares to find the strongbox. After defeating the Dullahan, who was once Miguel Silver, the siblings mention that the carrot data they originally had was corrupted due to the hacking, and need to open the strongbox and use what's inside to find a way out. Nicole gives permission, and we insert the data chip from the strongbox into Eos's cute little forehead, and what follows is insane. The sibling controlling the HDD then gets this strange memory or vision of them standing by Hollow Zero at what appears to be a lookout tower located in the Scott outpost. It appears that Hollow Zero starts to expand and consume everything around it before the vision ends. Unfortunately, we can't gain too much information from this right now, but we can speculate that this might be a prediction of what's to come in the future for the main characters. After the vision ends, the sibling gets flooded with information and agrees to a contract with Fairy to wait for the opportunity, then passes out. Then we get to hear a conversation between two mysterious voices that are said to be outside of New Eridu. The voices mention that one of the keys has been activated, meaning fairy, and then list off 3 others that exists: yokai, jinni, and ghost. There is a high chance that the voices speaking during this part are the 2 voices speaking during the lore teaser video they released on YouTube, due to them sounding similar with slight differences in the voice tuning, as well as the fact that they all end their sentences with an underscore, which is reminiscent of a command prompt cursor. Once this conversation ends, the sibling that passed out and agreed to the contract is woken up by, a mysterious doctor that pulled us out of the HDD. We then get a proper introduction to Fairy, who is a Type 3 general-purpose AI equipped with total sequential integration and has access to over 80% of smart devices in the city. This marks the end of the prologue, as the siblings start to use Fairy to build up a new internet account since they sacrificed the Phaethon account to get rid of the hacker. So, let's go over some important keywords and ideas that were introduced this chapter to keep in mind in future versions. The Strongbox. This was the box that Fairy was kept in and was stolen from the White Star Institute by the Red Fang Gang. The Election. This seems to be a somewhat important subplot that will come back later in the story. The HDD. This is the Hollow Deep Dive system that allows the siblings to connect and control EOS inside of Hollows. And the Keys. The other AI besides Fairy that are going to 100% be a major plot point as we continue. Besides Fairy, the other key names are Jinni, Ghost, and Yokai. The siblings take a break from working the smaller level commissions and decide to watch some TV together for the night. Meanwhile, the Cunning Hares are off to find out more information about the Strongbox itself and why the Red Fang Gang stole it, along with the person that gave Nicole the commission to begin with. While watching TV, the news comes on showcasing Mr. Perlman and Sarah, who talks about Vision Corporation and their amazing plan to rework the old Metro project, which they won the bid for by beating out Bellabog Heavy Industries. They offer to do this project in less time with lower costs. Their plan was to send special explosives to the demolition zone since they evacuated all the residents there, but there was a hollow blocking part of the metro line. This hollow is the dead-end hollow, so they decided to send those explosives through a special train and transport them through the hollow itself. During this explanation, Nekomata bursts into the store and mentions that she hired Nicole and the Cunning Hares for a commission and was sent here by Nicole while she deals with the mass amounts of residents still within the blast zone because guess what? They didn't evacuate anyone. To prove that she's telling the truth, she gives the siblings Nicole's Bangbu so they could look at the visual data and see the entire situation firsthand. The playback starts and we get to see Nicole being chased by the Red Fang Gang, which she quickly handles, but then gets surprise attacked by Nekomata, who explains to Nicole that she wants to hire them to help her retrieve her family heirloom from the gang. The news kicks back on, interrupting the siblings from watching more of the Bangbu footage, and then announces that the final train with the explosives are on the way to the demolition site, so the siblings quickly come up with a plan to intercept the train and stop it before it can arrive. While Nekomata and the siblings were on the way to the train's location, they ran into Corin, who was a member of the Victoria Housekeeping Company and was stuck behind a train and had no carrot data to get out of the hollow. They helped Corin find a way out and then continued to the train. However, upon getting inside the train, they find it filled with fake public security officers. Nekomata quickly jumps into the train, throwing us out to return to the store, mentioning that she has a carrot to escape. Once the sibling returns, they learn that the demolition had been postponed for an extra day due to, quote, technical difficulties, which allows more time. They come up with a new plan, to use the train to evacuate the residents and the Cunning Hares from the demolition zone. This is safe for the residents as well, because the train itself is resistant to ether corruption, so it'll sort of act as a suit for the residents to avoid getting corrupted as they go through the hollow. This plan goes awry, however, as when they capture Perlman to hijack the train, one of the fake public security officers blows up the tracks, rendering the train completely useless. Nekomata then reveals that she actually used to work for the Red Fang Gang, and that the heirloom was a picture of her and Miguel Silver. She originally hired the Cunning Hares to get close to them so she could get revenge for them killing Miguel Silver, however, had a change of heart when she saw how hard they were working to get the residents to safety. She then attempts to offer herself and Mr. Perlman as a bargaining chip to stop the demolition plan. However, this does not work as Sarah shoots Perlman with the sleep dart and exclaims that he is useless, meaning Nekomata's plan has now failed as well. Fret not, as the siblings came up with a backup plan when Nekomata fled with Perlman in case it didn't work. The size of a hollow depends on the amount of ether energy inside, and this includes ethereals, meaning if they could reduce the size of the hollow, then it could shrink enough to allow the residents to leave through the train tunnel without having to risk ether corruption. So to do this, the Cunning Hares set off on a mission to kill the Dead-End Butcher, which is a high-ranking ethereal with enough ether energy to equal hundreds of normal ones. Once the Cunning Hares destroy the Dead-End Butcher, they start to evacuate everyone, and Sarah tries a last-ditch effort and orders the fake public security officers to open fire on all the residents. Thankfully though, Nicole contacted Belobog and mentioned the situation, who came in clutch by bringing the media and showing up themselves to look at the situation. All of the fake public security officers were taken into custody and Sarah fled the scene. The Cunning Hares then added Nekomata as a permanent team member, and the Cunning Hares will be representing the residents in court for a hearing on the Vision Corporation situation. The siblings also make a passing mention that Vision almost got into the TOPS Alliance, which is an alliance between the largest corporation in New Eridu. This marks the end of Chapter 1, so let's again go over some key terms and moments. The Vision Corporation, the company that enacted the demolition plan and tried to get into the TOPS Alliance. Sarah, she's going to be important in the future and was the real mind behind the demolition plan for Vision. Mr. Perlman. While Sarah did say that Mr. Perlman is useless, he will actually be a plot point to keep in mind for the future. TOPS Alliance. The TOPS Alliance is probably going to be a thorn in our side, as since Vision was willing to do this scummy act to try and get into TOPS, then it's safe to assume that we'll run into some other business schemes from companies already inside TOPS in the future. And the Marcel Group. It was actually mentioned in this chapter as well that the company that makes Bangbu is called the Marcel Group, which was actually founded by Sunbringer, the Void Hunter shown in the lore teaser. While they are not a major factor in the story right now, it seems like an important note just to keep in mind. Now, before we get into Chapter 2, there was the Hollow Zero interlude in between, and since it has its own section in between the chapters in the video archive, I will be labeling this as essentially Chapter 1.5. While the proxies are still taking on smaller commissions after the Vision debacle with the Cunning Hares, our best bud, Shepard, mentions that he got backdoor access to Hollow Zero as they have begun routine operations again. Since the siblings are from Old Eridu and are investigating something we don't entirely know just yet, they jump at the opportunity to investigate Hollow Zero. All they have to do is complete a test commission inside Hollow Zero with an HIA investigator keeping watch on them. Sounds easy enough, right? Wrong! During this test commission, we encounter Nineveh, a special swarm-type ethereal that can also cause a special type of ethereal corruption known as the Withering. As one of the Hornets is about to attack Eos and the Investigator, they are saved by Miyabi, the leader of Hollow Special Operations Section 6, or HSOS 6 for short. This faction works under HAND, which stands for Hollow Affairs and Neutralization Department. Miyabi is also a Void Hunter, and the youngest Void Hunter to ever exist. She's also a descendant of the Sword Master Void Hunter shown in the lore teaser. Miyabi immediately leaves after vanquishing the Hornet and is followed by the rest of Section 6, those being Yanagi, Haramasa, and Sokaku. Due to this being an emergency, the Hollow Investigator hands over Eos to help Section 6 as they continue through Hollow Zero to catch up with Miyabi. After a bit, they find Miyabi as she gets a badass cutscene of attempting to strike Nineveh, but unfortunately could not make a hit that would leave lasting damage. So, Section 6 takes Eos and heads back to the Scott outpost to report their findings. Miyabi mentions that she would love to work with us again in the future. This chapter was very short, and yet we got a ton of info dropped, so let's recap some terms and moments. Hollow Zero, the largest and oldest hollow in New Eridu, and is the main hollow that caused the fall of the old capital. All 6 main hollows are companion hollows of Hollow Zero. This hollow also has a link to the siblings' past. HAND, an organization that mainly works in hollow-related affairs and attempts to destroy smaller companion hollows when possible. HSOS 6. This section works under HAND and is only deployed at the most extreme measures. Think of them as the SWAT team compared to public security, which are normal police. And Nineveh, a special swarm-type ethereal that can cause a unique variation of ether corruption called the Withering. With the addition of Fairy on the HDD, the siblings' electrical bill ends up being 5 times higher than normal, meaning they're running very low on funds. So, Wise mentions a commission he got recently that offered a large amount of compensation. However, the person who sent the commission was not easily identifiable and could not be trustworthy. However, Fairy finds out that it could be sent from someone in Belobog Heavy Industries, who now have control over the old Metro project after the Vision debacle. She then mentions that one of the members are on a TV show as they speak. So, Wise turns on the TV and we get to see Anton partake in a children's game show about Belobog versus Vision. Unfortunately for Belobog, it appears as it was all a setup to shed some poor light onto Belobog in their past, as the host goes off script and mentions that the president of Belobog Industries ran away with a large sum of money. The show ends and the siblings get another message from the aforementioned commission and that they would like to meet up in person. The siblings agree, and when they meet up, learn that it was Anton who posted the commission and learned about us from Nicole. He leads us to Belobog's working site to learn about the commission from the president. This is where we meet Grace, Ben, and Colita. They explain that since Belobog has taken over the Metro project, that they've become a thorn in the sides of other companies that want to take it over, so they're going out of their way to hinder Belobog's progress. These hindrances range from stopping low-interest loans to the rigged game show that Anton went on. Unfortunately, during an update to the logic cores of the smart machines using code from the old president, 3 of them ran off and disobeyed Grace's orders, and to try and limit the bad look on Belobog, they hired the siblings to help retrieve those 3 machines. The siblings agree to help and get sent on missions to retrieve the machines, which include the following. Grappler Hans, a grappling machine that ran away due to being tired of the mundane tasks it was programmed to complete, but after helping it avoid getting attacked by ethereals, decides to come back. The boring machine Mark III Greta, a boring machine that fell in love with a building she names Mr. White, who in a frenzy accidentally causes the building to collapse on her, and Grace helps her recover emotionally, which allowed Greta to return with us. Finally, the most important one, Friday, the pile driver. Friday received a signal to, quote, reinforce the seal from his mentor, Horse. Once Horse is mentioned, the vibe from the entire Belobog team shifts, and we get a flashback to Colita's past before the fall of the old capital. We learn that the previous president of Belobog was named Horse Belobog and was Colita's father. He created a prototype that he made for Colita to use in the future and allowed her to name it. Unfortunately, over time, Horse was not able to spend as much time with Colita as she wanted, and he ended up seemingly running away with a bag filled with money after a frantic phone call with him asking what's in there. He leaves Colita behind, saying he'd be back in no time, but was never seen again. Belobog brings Friday back home and starts to look into the signal it received, which Grace quickly found. It was a signal being broadcast from the prototype in the flashback. However, they couldn't get a good reading on where the signal was coming from, so they brought all 3 of the machines back into the hollow and placed them in separate spots to triangulate the area that the signal was coming from. Once the signal was found, Belobog and the siblings head over to the location, which ended up being a monument that Belobog was tasked with building before the old capital fell. The prototype was underneath the monument, appearing to be holding up a spike on the monument. Colita brings Eos with her to check out the cockpit, and they find bullet holes all over inside, along with a clipboard showing a bill for the prototype, showing that Horse did not run away with the money, but actually paid for the prototype manufacturing. While this is great news, it's shadowed by the fact that the cockpit was full of bullet holes, meaning that something bad probably happened to Horse. They decided to take the prototype back with them for further analysis. Upon removing the prototype from holding up the spike, a special ethereal burst out, and according to the siblings, did not appear to be a normal ethereal or a corrupted human. It gets pinned down by the other 3 machines before it absorbs them all and turns into a mass amalgamation of the 3 machines. Belobog does their best to hold it off, but Colita decides to pilot the prototype and fight it machine versus machine. Colita gets a very cute anime power-up moment through the power of family and defeats the ethereal. The siblings return to the shop after, and a few days later, Colita comes by mentioning that they received an external memory unit from the prototype and wants the siblings to take a look into what's on it. Unfortunately, Fairy can't hack into this, so we're tasked with trying to find Rain, a notorious hacker proxy that is well versed in hard-to-crack drives. Colita also mentioned that 2 pubsec girls will be retrieving the body of that ethereal, which we later learn are Juyuan and Qingyi. Thus marks the end of Chapter 2, which I think you know what that means by this point. Horse Belobog. the previous president of Belobog and Koleda's real father, one who created the prototype. The monument, a location that Belobog was tasked with building in the past that was sealing the special ethereal inside. Moving right along to Chapter 2.5, it starts off with Wise taking a phone call with Nicole, where Wise mentions that they're looking for Rain, and that the case involving the mysterious ethereal in the monument is being handed over from PubSec to Hand. Nicole says that she'll try and contact Rain, and is surprised to see PubSec hand over the case so easily, since those two departments seem to not be so buddy-buddy with each other. Once the call is over, Bell arrives, and Wise mentions that they need to get their driver's license renewed, so they head to the New Eridu Public Security Office in Lumina Square. After the renewal, while leaving Lumina Square, Bell has an odd glitch happen on her phone when looking for places to eat, so she tries to hold her phone up while walking into the sidewalk of the main street where a car going haywire almost ends Bell's proxy career. But thankfully Juyuin and Qingyi come in to save Bell and stop the car. The siblings mention that they have seen them before, but Wise quickly corrects her, saying that they have the wrong people. The officer duo gives us a flyer for our PubSec Safety Awareness Month lecture that they'll be holding soon, and mentions that they'll be near 6th Street to hand these out as well. They then leave and head back to the PubSec office, and the siblings head back to the store to discuss why the cops looked so familiar. They mention that they were the cops that showed up after the monument debacle with Belobog, and to make sure they have a fresh memory of what happened, they take a look at EOS's memory bank of the scene. Here, we learn that the excuse Belobog made to public security on why they were in an unauthorized zone of the Hollow was because their carrot data malfunctioned and they wandered in and accidentally found the mysterious ethereal. Qingyi uses her robo powers to taste and vibe check the monument and finds odd shards in the crystal, which is interrupted with the appearance of Bringer, who is the commanding officer of the district headquarters. Juyuin mentions that they requested the evidence be sent to Hand for further analysis, and Bringer immediately starts to freak out, saying that this would look bad for his election if news about a mysterious ethereal broke out among the people, and then assigned Juyuin and Qingyi to hand out and be a part of the safety lecture, while saying that PubSec should do the forensics of the evidence before giving it to Hand. Juyuin and Qingyi eventually show up to hand out flyers on 6th Street and ask the residents to join the seminar, which everyone says no to besides the siblings. While asking General Chop if he'd like to join, he gives a little more backstory on Bringer, saying that he is the praised Hollow hero from before the fall of the old capital, as back in the day, once he was promoted from the front lines, he still got involved at the ground level and interacted with the residents. Then he went missing in a Hollow rescue mission, but miraculously came out with a child who he saved. Unfortunately, now Bringer seems to be faking hard work and trying to get higher and higher in the ranks, even cozying up to the Tops Alliance and putting rules in place that benefit them. He's aiming for Commander of Janus Quarter in the upcoming municipal election, and is doing everything he can to seem like the best pick. The siblings head back to talk things over with Juyuin and overhear her mention that she was the kid that Bringer saved back in the day. After a short discussion, General Chop comes sprinting over, saying a crime has been committed, and everyone heads over to check it out. There was a Pegasus logistics driver that had the back door open and a bunch of ducks flew out. The driver was blaming GiveChange, the Bangbu of the 141 convenience store, for opening the back of the truck. To try and remedy the situation faster, the residents of 6th Street alongside Juyuin and Qingyi go to look for the ducks that flew out to return them to the driver. While searching for the ducks, we run into 3 more situations of odd occurrences with vehicles, meaning there's definitely something suspicious going on. After returning the ducks, Wise realizes that all the accidents that have happened recently could have been due to an EMP attack, which Qingyi agrees with and mentioned that they asked other officers to look at surveillance footage to find a suspect, which they immediately receive a call from those officers saying that a suspect is headed in their direction. Juyuin and Qingyi chase after him and end up going into a hollow, which the siblings then head back to the video store to pair with EOS and follow suit. The siblings help clear the way for the officers while staying hidden in the shadows to refrain from being noticed. Once the officers catch the criminal, they brought him to the station and interrogated him. They returned to 6th Street and mentioned that he was in a Hollow Raider gang, and they manufactured several EMP emitters to bypass vehicle security systems to steal them, but due to a lack of experience, led to various accidents occurring instead. The residents mentioned that they all decide to attend the seminar since the officers helped them deal with the situation on 6th Street, and the officers leave to do another round of interrogation. Once the day of the seminar arrives, Juyuin and Qingyi excuse themselves for a second after receiving the coordinates of other locations the EMP criminal intended to target, with Qingyi realizing that all the marked locations are along the route of the evidence carrier with the monster from the monument. In a quick decision, Qingyi and Zhu Yuan decide to head into the Hollow alone, leaving the seminar without telling public security, as the route that the carrier was taking was recently established and was top secret. The fact that the criminal had the route meant that there could be a mole in public security, so they opted to keep this mission a secret for now. Fortunately, the siblings were eavesdropping on the conversation and decided to do something similar as before, providing support with EOS without getting noticed. When Zhu Yuan and Qingyi reach the evidence carrier, they unlock it to check if the evidence is still there. However, they realize that the criminals have already taken the true evidence and swapped it out with the fake one to make it seem like nothing happened. Shortly after this realization, they get shot at from the criminals and make a run for a safer spot. Unfortunately, they're about to get ambushed from the direction they just headed, so the siblings make the risky choice of exposing the fact that they're in the Hollow with them to help Zhu Yuan and Qingyi escape using spatial rifts within the Hollow. Once they're safe, the siblings reveal themselves by Bangbu only and mention that they knew how to navigate and hack their comms because they're Phaethon, and can help them find the evidence and get it back as well. Zhu Yuan and Qingyi agree and obtain the evidence, and then Phaethon leads them to an exit. During their goodbyes, though, the siblings slipped up and mentioned something that tipped the officers off that whoever Phaethon's true identity might be, they attended the seminar and overheard the conversation before leaving. The following day, the siblings decide to go back to the public security office in Lumina Square to give their goodbyes to Zhu Yuan and Qingyi, as they are leaving to go back to their original branch. After giving them a gift, the siblings leave and Zhu Yuan gets a call from Miyabi, as we learn that they graduated in the same class together and seem to be pretty close. Miyabi mentions that the monster was handed over to Section 6, which shows that the ethereal from the monument is extremely important and has a conspiracy behind it. She continues and mentions that they found pieces of what resembles a mask within the monster's remains and managed to extract human male DNA from it. This DNA does not match any missing persons or criminals throughout the city though, which means the DNA must have belonged to someone from the old capital before it fell and outside the city limits. After the call, Zhu Yuan and Qingyi leaves as it cuts to Mr. Perlman inside a public security detention room in the Janus quarters. Sarah comes into the room with a new look and asks Mr. Perlman to confess to all his crimes in court. In turn, she and whoever she works for will make sure he gets the best treatment in prison. Mr. Perlman retaliates, stating that he saw that she had plans to use some of the explosives during the Vision scheme to be used on the monument, seemingly wanting to retrieve the monster for themselves. He threatened to reveal that he has evidence linking her and the person she's working for to the Vision case during court. Sarah then leaves and talks to the person she works for on the phone, asking if he will agree to Perlman's terms, to which he just responds, "I'll handle it." Couple things I want to note here is that Sarah is not her real name. As she states, Sarah never existed. Unfortunately, we have no hints on what her real name could be at this time, and there's also nothing hinting at who the guy she works for is, but I have two options that I think could be pretty interesting. First is Bringer, since when Sarah asks Perlman to confess to his crimes, she says, "We will make sure you get the best treatment in prison," which Bringer is able to ensure that happens. They also have a similar tone of voice. Second option is if it was the vampire guy shown in Lycan's agent mission, since they also have a similar voice, and when Sarah speaks to him on the phone, she reaches toward the moon, which when we see the vampire guy, he stares at the moon as he speaks. Nothing truly connects them just yet, but I'm curious if you guys have any theories on who you might think Sarah's working for. On to the key terms and moments of this chapter though. Bringer, the supposed hollow hero that saved Zhu Yuan from a hollow when she was a kid, and the reason she aspired to be an officer. The fact that our identity may have leaked to Zhu Yuan and Qingyi. The monument ethereal is now in the hands of Section 6. The fact that Sarah works for someone in the shadows who has secret plans. And I also want to mention that the potential mole that Zhu Yuan and Qingyi mentioned, I am fairly certain is Bringer, as he's the one who asked for it to be in the hands of public security for forensics. This allowed it to stay in PubSec's hands long enough for him to potentially hire a gang to steal the evidence so that it never gets into the hands of Hand. Get it? Hands of Hand? Anyway, it makes perfect sense for him to be the mole. Finally, the last chapter of 1.0. Chapter 3. The siblings sit down to watch the court case for Nicole as she represents the residents of Canvas Street, but as the airship is preparing to pick up the Cunning Hares, Nicole gets a bunch of blank messages from Rain and decides to confront Phaethon about it. She explains that both her and anyone close to Rain has been getting blank messages from her for weeks, but recently has been getting a ton just that morning and thinks something may be wrong. The siblings ask Fairy to check if the messages are actually blank, which they were. However, the location of where she's sending them from was not encrypted and shows that they were being sent from the ballet twins. The siblings agree to check out the ballet twins and ask if they can take Enby and the others with them in case they need to go into the hollow, which Nicole agrees to, saying that she won't need them in court. The crew starts to investigate inside the building, and after clearing some ethereals, they encounter Victoria Housekeeping Company, who were very hostile until Corin mentioned Nekomata and Eos were the ones that helped her during the hollow during Chapter 1. Victoria Housekeeping mentions they were employed by the owners of the building to keep it in check, and the siblings explain the entire situation on why they came to the ballet twins, along with the fact that they are Phaethon. They did not mention about Rain being a hacker, however. Unfortunately, during this conversation, Nicole calls and says that all the Cunning Hares were registered to be on the stand at court, so they have to hurry back and get on the airship. Thankfully, this works out though, because the care data that the Victoria Housekeeping had was outdated, so the siblings were able to continue their investigation with them instead. Before they continue further into the building, they leave to escort the rest of the Cunning Hares out of the hollow and meet up to talk with the members of Victoria Housekeeping before starting the investigation. During this meetup, Rena actually mentions that Eos had a previous master before the siblings, and that they took him in after Eos lost its last master. But that lore thread ends immediately, as the conversation ends to talk with other members. Rena does mention though that one of the reasons why she has so much insider information is because she works for very important high-up people, and who better to confide in than a housemaid who keeps her mouth shut. Her words, not mine. After meeting with the group, it cuts to Perlman and Nicole, who are boarding the airship, and we learn that Sarah ended up accepting his terms and gave him instructions to open a briefcase on the airship 2 hours after takeoff, and to follow the instructions inside, as someone will help him get out and leave New Eridu. The rest of the Cunning Hares show up, and Billy mentioned that he switched his respiratory module recently and can't switch it back to intake mode. They all board the airship and leave as the siblings enter back into the ballet twins with the housekeeping. As they enter, Lycan mentions that they can do their maintenance along the way, so the main goal will be to find Rain as quickly as possible. Along the way, Rena explains the supernatural rumors behind the ballet twins, that when the building was swallowed up by the hollow, a pair of famous ballet twins, 2 sisters, died there. They would warn intruders with flashing lights, and if they refused to leave, then they would cause a blackout and show up in the darkness to harvest their souls. What a nice story, Rena. Thank you. She continues saying that the true reason they are here is to see if the rumors are true or not and report back to the owners. Lycan speaks up, saying that the atrium path that we have could be locked off by a power outage, as it could cause the doors to instantly close. A warning which happens almost instantly, as the lights start to flicker faster and it becomes a race to the door. Lycan almost makes it, but is cut off by a stray ethereal and the doors fully close. Fairy mentions that Corin and Ellen can't just cut through the door though, as the area is unstable and any massive impacts could cause a hollow distortion. After a short while, Lycan managed to find that the building has a power supply underneath the building, but since they can't access it, they need to go to 2 separate rooms to check the malfunction and restore power. While exploring the area around the central control room, we are told a story by the ghost in the building. After collecting all of the clues, we find out that when the hollow consumed the building, there was a group of 7 who tried to escape together. However, when they got to an elevator, 5 of them decided to leave the twin dancers behind to allow for more weight of their items and belongings. This unfortunately led to the twins' demise, and yet they still overloaded the weight of the elevator with the belongings, and the other 5 perished as well, with their last words stating that this was karma for leaving the twins behind. The crew makes it to the control room, and everything there seems to be operational, which means the issue must be from the second room, so the sibling leads Corin and Ellen to that second room and find the issue, turning the power back on, which opens the door to Building B. When they enter, Eos finds Rain's backpack with a playback device that starts to play music, which attracts one of the ethereal dancers. After a short fight, Eos throws the playback device into a spatial fissure, causing the dancer to disappear, but are immediately attacked by missiles. Ellen rushes in and knocks out the ones responsible, and then passes out due to using all of her energy. Lycan recommends we help them out of the hollow and continue the investigation after. After bringing them out of the hollow, Rena and Lycan interrogate one of the soldiers and learns that Rain was kidnapped and is being kept on the roof of the building, while they were tasked with keeping people out of Building B. Lycan breaks away from the interrogation and asks us to reveal Rain's true identity, and we finally explain that she's a well-known hacker. Everyone enters the building again, and as they defeat some of the grunts, they find a signal transmitter and files showing the blimp that is transporting everyone to the court case. At that same time, Billy calls, saying that Perlman opened up a briefcase which released a sleeping gas that knocked everyone out, including the pilot. Billy's the only one that did not pass out due to the airtake malfunction he mentioned at the start of the chapter. He mentions that the ship is on autopilot mode, but the course has been changed to the Ballet Twins Tower. The siblings mentions that Rain must have been forced to change the signal and direction of the airship while also creating a fake signal to make it seem like it was still on the right track. Lycan comes up with a new plan to save Rain before the airship collides with the Hollow and have her undo the changes she made. After a short sprint, they run into some thugs, throwing Rain into a pit for knowing too much about the plan. Lycan rushes in and catches her as the rest of the housekeeping get behind the thugs to knock them out. But unfortunately, a few manage to escape. Rain jumps into action, saying that we need to make it to the rooftop as quickly as possible, but gets cut off by the leftover thugs as they blow up the path to the roof. Fairy calculates a new path, and Rain says she can disable the autopilot on the roof, but someone will have to steer the blimp out of the hollow. Lycan says he can do it, and they rush to the roof using the new path, but right before they reach it, the dancing twins return and block the path. Victoria housekeeping fight the dancers until they back off and disappear, which Corin and Ellen then jump into action and break through to the roof. Lycan, realizing he doesn't have much time left to reach the ship, goes into full overdrive and rushes up the building, getting a sick-ass moon jump shot as he makes it onto the airship and flies it to safety. Once the airship lands and they evacuate everyone inside, the siblings and Victoria housekeeping decide it's probably a better idea to take Rain back into the Hollow and leave through the main exit so that the public security don't know that they were involved. While they do this, Billy's plan is to tell the police that he is the one that piloted the airship and landed it. Unfortunately, Perlman wakes up before the public security even get to the scene and gets back onto the airship and leaves, flying it outside of New Eridu, supposedly to the Outer Ring. The following days, Rain is protected by the housekeeping company as she recovers and hacks into the memory unit given to us from Belobog that was received from the prototype in Chapter 2. Meanwhile, the trial is postponed till they find Perlman, and the siblings meet up with Rain to retrieve the decrypted memory unit, and Rain explains how she got involved in the first place, which was truly just trusting a shady commission due to the high payment involved, and got kidnapped to help them hack the blimp. She mentions that she did not hear who employed the ones who kidnapped her, but she did overhear the main reason to attack the ship was to get rid of Perlman, and something was mentioned called the Sacrifice. The siblings take the memory unit from Rain and go back to the video store with Grace and Coletta as they listen to the audio log inside. Hors, in his final moments, was captured as he asks someone what was truly inside the monument, and the mysterious person he was with says that it's called the Sacrifice. The siblings react to this and tell Grace and Coletta about what Rain mentioned about Perlman and the usage of the term sacrifice before. As this happens, it pans out to the top of a building overlooking the video store as both Lycan and Grace are standing atop, having a conversation, which shows that they know about us and the fact that we know about the sacrifice. They mention that their master tells them to help the siblings in their investigation as they are too involved to keep them out, but could become allies for them in the future. This was a massive lore drop as it shows that Grace and Lycan already know about the sacrifice and are doing their own investigation on it. The siblings believe that Perlman knows who is behind all of this, so they plan to find Perlman in the Outer Ring. Chapter 3 was a blast, as it connects everything that we've seen so far together, and now everything is starting to interweave into a massive storyline. As always, the biggest terms used in Chapter 3 to remember are 1. The Sacrifice, which is the weird monster in the monument that everyone seems to want and is investigating, and 2. The Outer Ring, the Wild West for New Eridu, where public security has no jurisdiction and where Perlman fled to after he got the blimp. With Chapter 3 complete, that is all of the main story besides Agent Missions and 1.0. I will be doing a video covering the Agent Missions in the future, but for now, this got you caught up for the launch of 1.1. Once I complete 1.1, I will make a recap video on that as well, and Agent Missions provided. So make sure to subscribe to keep up to date on all things ZZZ. Let me know in the comments which chapter is your favorite, and what plot point are you looking forward to them expanding on. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon.